Gotcha. Okay, ready? Okay. Hello, everyone, and I just wanted to take a moment and welcome everyone to the October school board meeting. Thank you all for coming. We have some decorum rules on a sheet as you came in the door, so please take a look at those. We really appreciate everyone being here at our school board meeting tonight, and we will start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, we will start with our recognitions. And tonight, are we starting with Finley River School? College Board first. Okay, sorry, Miss Leonard. Yep. College Board recognition first. Dr. Brownfield.
You all. Thank you all. I think I have 3 with me this evening of our 5 who received College Board recognitions. Read a little bit about the College Board and the recognitions that these students received. The College Board National Recognition Program awards academic honors to underrepresented students. The 4 national recognition programs include the National African American Recognition Program, National Hispanic Recognition Program, National Indigenous Recognition Program, and the National Rural and Small Town Recognition Program. Of our 5 students we had receive honors, 4 were being recognized with the National Rural and Small Town Award, an award to recognize students in unrepresented areas. And one of our students who's not here tonight is a commended student for his performance in the National Merit Scholarship Program by taking the PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test during their junior year. And although commended students do not continue on for the competition for National Merit Scholarships, some may be candidates for special scholarships offered by our corporate sponsors. So our 3 students we have with us tonight who are recognized by the College Board for the National Rural and Small Town Award are Kately Sutherland, Ella Counts, and Gabriel Wheeler. So those are our 3. Those are our 3 College Board recognition recipients that are here this evening, and it's really an honor to get recognized by the College Board. That's a very prestigious board as part of that National Merit Scholarship Program, so we're just very proud of these students for this award. Go right over
here. Thank you. Congratulations. We'll do a photo soon. After our portrait of a graduate students, we have Finley River School, Ms. Leonard.
Good evening. This month's student spotlight for Finley River School is Kendall Church. She's a senior who moved to Ozark just about the time the pandemic was taking a hold. And her story is not unfamiliar, but the layered challenges made those academic and social successes difficult. Kendall is a leader in our cohort who is kind and compassionate and focused on goal setting. She is currently dual enrolled with OTC in a composition course and doing extremely well, and is planning to take a math course next semester. She's been able to collaborate, effectively with teachers as they've worked to set those academic and personal goals. Her work has put in place a practical and purposeful plan. We thoroughly enjoy working with Kendall and take pride in her accomplishments. Collaboration is certainly a trait that will serve her well.
Ozark High School, Dr. Brownfield.
Kudos to our academy leaders. They are now doing the recognition for Portrait of a Graduate. And they came to me this month and said, hey, this award's collaboration. We think there are 2 students who deserve collaboration because they collaborate. And Delaney was the only one of the 2 that could be here this evening. McKinley Scott is the other. But they are really the definition of collaboration. They are constantly moving around the school, working together. They're co-editors of the yearbook. They're arts and communication capstone students. They held the first ever media day for our fall sports, took headshots of those students to put on our new activities and athletics website. Going to do the same thing for winter sports as well, correct, Delaney? You know, if you're at a football game, you'll see them on the sideline together taking pictures. You see them in the journalism space constantly working together. I mean, these 2 are really the definition of collaboration. So we're honored to bring you 2, one of which could be here tonight, Delaney Carden and McKinley Scott, for collaboration this month.
And junior high, Dr. Link.
I want to introduce you guys to Lewis Randolph. He's a 7th grader at Ozark Junior High. He's on Team Europe. He is our Portrait of a Graduate Student of the Month for collaboration, and he was nominated by his team. Team Europe, specifically Miss Robbins, wrote up a real nice little thing here that I'd like to read for you. Lewis is a collaborative classroom leader. He practices teamwork and leads by example in all his classes, continually demonstrating his willingness to listen with a purpose to understand others' perspectives and ideas. He's consistent, positive in every interaction he has. We're proud of his can-do attitude and the way he continually exemplifies the Portrait of a Graduate trait of the month, which is collaboration. So thank you for representing yourself well and your family and being here at our school. Okay? Congratulations.
Middle school, Dr. Russell.
Good evening. So tonight, I have brought Miss Tricia Benton, and she is from our dream team. She's a math teacher, and she has our student Ariella Zendejas that she would like to recognize and tell you why we've nominated her. And just so you know, the way we narrow that down, every team gets to select 2, 1 boy and 1 girl, and so we get a total of 12 boys and 12 girls. We've got to pick from 24 students every month. And Ariella is our student this month, and we're so proud of her. And you can tell by that smile, that's partially why.
And Ariella had no idea that this was happening, so her parents brought her to surprise her today. So that's even more fun. But I've worked at a ton of different places in my life, and nothing has prepared me to work at Ozark Schools. The teamwork that happens here, the collaboration that happens here, is just a picture of what these kids get to see. And so to have a Portrait of a Graduate that has to do with collaboration is huge. And Ariella is a product of this amazing school system. She's a Southie and now at our middle school. And she sees those examples daily throughout the school of what it means to collaborate. You may not also know, but she plays basketball. So she knows what to be on a team is, and she brings that back into our room. And she does a great job. She has a great smile. Whenever we work in groups in math, she's always the one to keep everybody on track on her little group. And then she's also the one to help people understand if they don't. And that's a huge part of collaboration. You can't just say, oh, well, we all have our names in there. You have to be able to say that we all know what we're doing in the end. And I've always just seen that, seen that in her this year. And I'm just so thankful that we have such a bright star on our team this year.
South Elementary, Dr. Roy.
It is a privilege to introduce to you Muna Wasu. She is a kindergartner at South Elementary, and she is being recognized for being collaborative. And I have brought Ms. Fox along with us this evening to talk about why she submitted her name for collaboration.
I chose Muna as a collaboration student because she is such a good listener and tries to help others learn also. She shares her ideas and then she listens to others, and she also makes sure that things go the way they need to go. And she just is very helpful in the classroom and always just tries her best. She goes above and beyond. It's amazing for a kindergartner to do. So, yep.
West Elementary. Where's Tabuya? North Elementary? Is Tabuya? Let's see here. Let's go with West Elementary. Dr. Tabuya.
This is Journey Smith, and Journey is a second grader at West Elementary in Mrs. Godin's class, and she received a positive principal referral for being collaborative, and this is what Mrs. Godin wrote about Journey. She worked diligently during reading group to read a new book. Mrs. Godin gave her a partner, and they listened to each other read. Both students read accurately and fluently while reading together. So she showed that she can work together well with another student to accomplish a goal.
East Elementary. Dr. Capen.
Good evening. I have the honor of introducing Elizabeth Wolfert to you. She is a third grader at East in Mrs. Lineberry's class. Mrs. Lineberry is the one who gave her this award for being responsible and collaborative. But honestly, she's a true model of all the portrait of a grad traits. She is an example to others in so many ways. She's a great listener. She follows directions the first time given. She always listens to understand others too. She's a hard worker who is consistently on task and responsible for her work. She's a team player and works well with anyone. She is always kind and accepting of all students and staff. She goes out of her way to make everyone feel welcome and loved. She's just a bright light in our school. So, Elizabeth.
And North Elementary. Dr. Wallace.
Good evening. We have the privilege tonight of introducing Miss Ella Dewey. She's a third grader at North Elementary to be our collaborative student of the month. Along with Ella is her teacher, Miss Harper. Together, they are a pretty powerful team when it comes to collaboration. So she is learning from one of the best in Miss Harper. Miss Harper has a couple words that she'd like to share about why we nominated Miss Ella.
Good evening. Ella Dewey is a role model when it comes to collaboration in my classroom. She encourages others to work towards a common goal. When working in groups, she likes to put ideas on the table quickly. Ella is aware of others' strengths and encourages others to use their strengths for the better of the group. It's common for her to say something along these lines, "So-and-so is really good at drawing, so you should draw our picture for the group." Keep up the great work, Miss Ella. Teamwork will take you far in life.
Tiger Paw. Dr. Dawson.
Good evening. Hi. I have the honor and privilege this evening to introduce Daniel Murfin and Coach Trevor, who nominated him.
I nominated Daniel for collaboration this month, but he exhibits all portraits of a graduate. He is a great leader. He works well with students, teachers, anyone in the building. He's also the first to let you know if you're not following the rules. Holds everyone accountable. He's a pleasure to be around. He's always smiling, always happy. And this is Daniel Murfin.
Oh.
Love it. Yeah. Let's go do our photos out here. Ready? Okay. We'll be right back. Okay, yeah. Is it request time? Request to distribute. You got your 5 minutes? Are we doing 5 minutes? Yeah.
Just making sure.
Wait for Erica to sit down. Okay. Can we go ahead and, okay. All right, well, next we'll do our request from district patrons. And first we have Mr. William Downey.
I'd like to talk about the data sharing. And first of all, about this agreement we have, with the NWEA, which
Excuse
is a
me, I'm
division
sorry. Mr. Downey, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can you move the mic over in front of you? Thank you, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt this time.
This is about the data sharing agreement.
Oh, good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. With the and part of this contract we were reading through has to deal with the NWEA, Northwest Evaluation Association, which is owned by the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company, of whom we give our children's personal data to. And this doesn't seem right to me, that our children's data should be leaving the walls of this school and going outside of the school. I was reading through here and a few things. I just want to read a few things here that I caught on here. In this data agreement, which may include student PII or student personal data, as the term defined in FERPA. And if you read the attachment 2 in there, some of this data is children's name, student ID, student state ID, date of birth, gender, ethnic group, all kinds of different testing results. These kind of things can affect children for their whole life. And, a bad result in grade school can affect their career when they're an adult. Also, this information is just dangerous to certain people once it gets out there. A couple of other things in this agreement. They're authorized to use the data to complete the services requester is providing to authorizer may disclose PII with the understanding that the party receiving information may make further disclosures of the information on behalf of the authorizer if the disclosures meet the requirements of Section 99.3. Legitimate and educational interests of the school officials, which now includes contractors, not just, who are these contractors we're going with. Also, may disclose and legitimate interests which each of the additional parties, we don't know who these are, parties, has in requesting and obtaining information. The authorizer represents and warrants to NEWA that which obtained any and all requested consents, collect and receive data described. Also, the authorizer will indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the NWEA. They have no responsibility with our data for our children. And it also says, in no event will NWEA be liable for any indirect, incidental, special, exemplary, or consequential damages, including procurement of substitute goods or services, loss of use of data, profits, or business interruption, or any other damages not arising from any WA's gross negligence. So we're writing off any responsibility that they have as an organization. And also, the agreement is governed by the laws of Oregon, not from the laws of Missouri. Any conflicts that Missouri law has with are superseded by Oregon law, according to this agreement. So, in essence, I'm saying we shouldn't disclose any information to DESE or any other organization outside of the school. And many parents don't know that the school is giving away personal information of their children. DESE is a rogue organization. They're way off base in the education of our children. They're pushing the SEL agenda. And I'm voting for the next governor, and there are governors who are running for the next election who are saying that they're going to dissolve DESE once they're elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Mr. David Romano.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again today. Last week, the bus stop for our kids was moved back to our road near the cul-de-sac where it used to be, and we were extremely relieved and really grateful for that. My son was already at the point 2 weeks ago where he's having to hike down the road with a flashlight in the morning, and he thinks he saw a coyote. I think it was a dog, but in any case. But then yesterday we saw the agenda for today, and from the agenda we concluded that school officials intend for the bus stop move to be a very temporary thing. If I'm wrong about that, just let me know and I'll save you guys my speech, but we were kind of distressed about that. And we think that Mr. Chesick today intends to stand up in front of you guys and tell you that accommodating our concerns will necessitate either undue favoritism or a policy change that will affect an impossibly large number of students, because this is always his response, no matter what we suggest. Whatever policy suggestion, whatever caveats, whatever parameters, it's always his response. So in that light, I included for you in my handout the last emails we had between myself and Mr. Chesick, just so you can see how the conversation was going and how we were sort of talking past each other at this point, which is why we have to be here in front of you now. Now we also want, and when I say we, I mean me, our family, and the other family on our road who's here as well. We also want to note that the appendix in today's agenda, the PowerPoint, appears to cherry pick convenient sections of the Board of Education guidelines on this, which I want to specify are minimum guidelines that they invite school boards to surpass if they want to, but it appears to cherry pick them. So I gave you a full text of those guidelines with the parts that were conveniently omitted from the PowerPoint highlighted in yellow. Now, we also feel that the data in the appendix that was included intentionally ignores the parameters of the policies we have been suggesting. And I've included our responses to each of those data points that are in the appendix. That's the next page. Now, naturally, I think our proposals have been reasonable, and that school officials, instead of working with us for a solution, you know, the parents, the taxpayers, the citizens of the county, just reject anything we suggest. Now, I'm sure they're also annoyed by our persistence, but our kids' safety is what's in question. Now, finally, last month in my email to each of you who are on the board, I included examples of how other school districts have addressed similar problems. Now, please see as the last page in the handout that I gave you, yet another example that I didn't send to you by email of how a school board somewhere else does it. And there they have an across-the-board quarter-mile limit to the distance the kids are going to walk. And even for that, They make exceptions for, quote, rural routes where safety is a concern. Now, if Mr. Chesick won't consider this, I'm here to ask if all of you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Crystal Gibson.
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to talk today. It's a privilege that I don't take lightly. With that being said, bear with me because I'm not a public speaker at all. It's far from my list of personal strengths. In either case, I'm here to be an advocate as a parent and try to just be a voice for my kiddos. I'm very thankful for my wonderful neighbor who can articulate those details in fine print much better than I can. So I personally, age, even into elementary school and up into adulthood at our orientations and all sorts of meetings, it's always safety first. Oh, safety first. They drill it into our heads, and it's to prevent accidents. In our case, we're looking at about a 0.345 mile walk. If you're visual, like I am, that's roughly from this building to the post office. This walk is out of the line of sight from our houses and many houses at all. My children walk down the street that ends in an intersecting road with the infamous lettered Highway W with a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. No shoulder on that road, or very little. If you've been on any of the local media websites, I'm sure you've enjoyed reading some comments from people in our community about how safe that road is and how safe our local drivers are. My question is for you guys, what happened to safety first? And if there is a safer option that does not cause any extra challenges for our bus drivers, then why not just take that safer route, especially when it does not have to affect a mass amount of bus routes or children or whatever it is that we're looking at. We can look at specific situations. I really believe that. So on October 9th, we were informed that our stop would be changing back to the old location that it has been for the past 6 years. And I can't even express to you the level of relief that I felt and my family felt just knowing that if we are running a couple minutes late from work, or just might be a little bit behind, that our children are making a safer walk to their home. This just really gives us an extra piece of priceless mind and safety, that they're safe. So I don't have the ability to tell you guys how many others could benefit from this change or if there's even a need for it. I do, however, hope that no matter the problem, not specifically a bus route or anything, but just any problem, that if a parent brings a concern to anyone regarding the safety of their children, I hope that they're heard and taken seriously. When I heard that this issue was going to be discussed today, I was slightly disheartened, as it's obviously correlated to our situation. I'd like to reiterate that I remain sorry that this situation continues unresolved. I'm sure that this has affected our bus drivers and added stress to an already very, very stressful job. Well, I assume that, I don't know. Anyway, we wholeheartedly appreciate our bus drivers and what they do for our kids, and especially our bus driver, Michael, whom my kids speak very, very highly of. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have our demographic report, moving on to informational items.
So we're going to have Mr. Templeton join us. And we contract every few years, about every time we're ready to do our long-range planning again, to have our demographic study updated. The economy obviously is playing a role on our demographic study at this, our movement at this time into the district. As you drive around, you can see a lot of multifamily housing coming up. And we just want to know where we're at and how the growth does. We have three, if you look into the Assistant Superintendent Report of Operations, you'll see we have 3 dates for the Long Range Planning Committee coming up, and we'd like to personally invite all of you and everybody in attendance. That is one of our most well-attended community engagement. We shoot for 150 and we generally hit closer to 175. So this time I think we're going to shoot for 200, which is a big number, and it's becomes cumbersome to manage that many people in a small space. But for the interactive process, we want to have as many as we can. So please look over those dates. And is Mr. Templeton in?
Good evening, Bob Templeton here. Can you hear me?
We can, sir.
All right. And can you see the PowerPoint?
We are going to pull it up.
I didn't check them.
It doesn't look like I can share my screen, but I'll give notice when to advance the slides.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Sure, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. Very interesting times. You know, this has been a challenging last 2.5, 3 years due to the pandemic. I'm going to touch on some economic conditions. We'll start with the big picture for the unemployment rates. So if you go to that unemployment rate slide, you can see how the unemployment rate shot up in the spring of 2020 when the pandemic started. That was historic. We've never seen anything like it. The unemployment rates across the country shot up over 14%. And then you'll notice it improved rather quickly as we reopened. And the most recent unemployment numbers as of August put it in that almost 4% range, which is almost at full employment. Just about every industry has really struggled over the last 2.5 years with filling open positions. It's happened in every industry. We've seen it in education across the country, the challenges of filling teaching positions, filling the service positions as well. But we are starting to see slight improvements in the employment situation as we've seen a little bit of a settling. If you'll go to the next slide. I wanted to touch on some demographic trends. This is from the company that we subscribe to get demographic data. We ran the demographic report for the Ozark School District. The total population within the boundary of the Ozark School District is 35,971. That's as of the second quarter of 2023. And you'll also notice that they provided a 5-year total forecast for 2028. And in 2028, you can see that it's growing to almost 3,000 persons during that 5-year period. Sometimes these projections can be a little bit understated. And that's why we do the housing research. We study the single family, the multifamily housing picture. What I'll also point out is when you go to the next slide, this is a breakdown of the total population by age cohort. One thing that you'll notice when we compare the Ozarks demographic population to the county's population, the Ozark School District is a little bit younger than the county's population. You can see that in those bars. The dark green bar is the bar representing the population for the Ozark School District. And when you look at those younger bars toward the bottom of that graph, the 0 to 4, the 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and all of those younger age cohorts, the Ozark School District is younger than the remaining portion of the Christian County. Next slide. Want to touch on just some enrollment trends across the state of Missouri. This is a 5-year thematic map based on enrollment change. The darkest red school districts are the school districts that are growing the fastest. And you can see it kind of changes as the colors get lighter in red, the growth slows down, but all of the red school districts are growing school districts. I've outlined the Ozark School District in blue down near the Springfield Star. And you can see that during the 5-year period ending in the 2022-23 year, the Ozark School District grew about 224 students. Next slide kind of zooms into the Springfield area. And again, I've outlined the Ozark School District in blue, and you can see the growth is all around the Springfield urban area. So very strong growth around the urban core of Springfield, but the Ozark School District in that 100 to 500 category, it's the third fastest growing district in this region. Next slide. Now, I want to touch on the housing market because the housing market has been very up and down over the last 3 years. The pandemic actually accelerated home construction. We saw a huge surge in new home construction across the country, and we work with about 100 school districts across the country. This pattern happened in just about every suburban school district that we work with, and it's partially because the pandemic initially caused a shortage of supply of existing homes. There was some fear, some concern about safety, not wanting traffic through homes, uncertain about what the pandemic was going to bring in terms of economic challenges. So we saw limited numbers of existing homes. So therefore, when families needed to move, the new home market provided that source. So we saw new home construction really surge. And you can see that in this pattern. This is total home sales within the Ozark School District. 2020, 1,147. In 2021, it was 1,160. Then it started to drop off in 2022. That's also the time that the Fed started raising the interest rates. In 2021, first quarter of 2022, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage was right at 3%. And the Fed started a very gradual acceleration of the interest rate. And now that interest rate is over 7%, which has a huge impact on the financing of homes. So we have seen a slowdown in sales, and we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in new home construction as well. Year to date, you can see in 2023, this was, I believe, through about August, it was right at 450. Next slide. Now, we have seen a little bit of a softening in the average price for new homes. You can see this table is tracking new home pricing all the way back to 2015. And you can see in 2023, it's softened just a little bit. That's the builders are trying to help with the affordability challenge of the rising interest rates. We haven't seen a significant drop in the average sale price of existing home. That's partially due, again, to the limited inventory. Again, the existing home market is somewhat constrained because there's a lack of supply of existing homes, because many of those homeowners have very low interest rates, so they're unwilling to move up, buy a different home, and go into a higher interest rate. Next slide. Now this map, I've kind of zoomed in to the kind of northern half of the school district. This is the your current elementary attendance zones. And the green shaded areas are active subdivisions that are building or recently built single family homes. The yellow shaded areas are future subdivisions that are in the planning stages. And areas where you see a red outline, that's indicating that development activity is taking place. The developers have not slowed down. So while new home starts have slowed, developers are still working to deliver new projects and deliver additional lots. That's likely because they already had their plans approved, the financing was in order, the engineering was done, so those wheels were already in motion. But we are seeing some pretty significant development of new lots, new single-family lots within the district. We have about 330 vacant developed lots available for builders to build on. And when we did the research last month, we tracked about 95 homes that were under construction across the district. There's about 1,750 future lots that are in various stages of planning, and there's groundwork underway on about 300 lots that are in those shaded areas that have a red outline. Next slide. I'm going to touch on some of the highlights. This is Woodcrest. It's 117 lots, There are about 38 homes under construction, 38 occupied homes. There's an additional 33 vacant developed lots. We've included a satellite image, which is that small image in the right side of the screen, which is dated October the 10th. We're very fortunate. We do have access to satellite imagery that stays about 2 to 3 weeks behind, and it's updated every month. Next door is Finley Crossing. It's 118 future lots. The groundwork is underway on all of those lots, expecting to deliver those lots spring of 24. So this spring lots could be delivered, could see some new home starts in there late spring or sometime this summer. To the south there, we've got the Cedar Village duplexes, which is 61 total lots. There's about 19 vacant developed lots remaining, 5 under construction, 36 occupied homes in the Cedar Village duplex. Next slide. Now we've got a little bit of a mix on this slide. We've got a multifamily section there, which is the 20th Street multifamily project. It's 142 future multifamily units. The developer anticipates groundwork starting toward the end of 2024. So a little bit of time before they break ground on that apartment complex that's got 142 units. Just to the south there, we've got a single family development with some duplex lots. That's Valley Ridge Estates, 135 future lots, 100 single family lots, and 35 duplex lots. The groundwork is underway on that project. Just to the south there, we've got Natural Bridge, which is 524 future lots. It's still in the preliminary planning stage. So the preliminary plat is under review with the city. It could take a couple of more months before that could be finalized. Again, then depending upon when they break ground, I suspect this is easily, 16 to 24 months out before you could start to see new home construction in Natural Bridge. Next slide is the Old World Estates. It's winding down. There's 357 total lots, 11 homes under construction, so it'll be finishing up very soon. They have been building about 40 to 50 homes per year, but it is winding down. To the southwest there, we've got Eagle Springs, which is 222 total lots, 57 homes occupied, so it's really just getting going. Groundwork is nearing completion on all of the future lots. So you can see the outline there on that satellite image on the left side of the screen, which is October the 10th. Next slide, we're looking at the Rivers, which is 606 total lots, 21 homes under construction in the Rivers. We expect they could build out by the end of 2024. So they've got about 19 vacant developed lots. So they'll get those 21 homes finished, likely start the remaining vacant lots in 2024. We are seeing that it is taking a little bit longer to build homes. A lot of that is due to shortage of labor, shortage of subcontractors, or just the very tight schedule. We've got Northtown Park, which is 130 total lots. It's just getting started. 123 vacant developed lots, 7 homes under construction. The developer anticipates building about 40 to 50 homes per year. That could be a little optimistic right now with the rising interest rates. I think they'll be good to do 20, 25 homes a year, at least during the next couple of years. Next slide. We've got the North 20th Apartments, and that's 192 units. Phase 1 with 96 units. It is under construction. You can see on the far right of that slide that's on the right, you can see they've gone vertical on a couple of those units. You can also see that Creek Bridge single family development right next door. They've got 165 total lots, 3 homes under construction. There's groundwork on phase 5, which is underway, that has 26 lots. So some new lots coming for Creek Bridge. And then next door is Stonegate, which is 122 total lots, 24 vacant developed lots, 6 homes under construction. And so they've got a little bit of a growth curve there as well. Next slide. No, that was the highlight. So I wanted to just give you the highlights of the single family and the multifamily construction. Now I want to touch on the enrollment history. This is looking at your enrollment history, and the total there is the K-12 enrollment. We're showing the early childhood pre-K numbers. Of course, you can see how it really shot up this year. Went from 111 students last year to over 226 students this year. One thing I'll point out is we have seen a little bit of a softening in the kindergarten numbers over the last 2 years. Again, maybe a little bit of also softening in the first grade. Now, this is a trend that we're seeing with all of our clients. So this was not something that is specific to the Ozark School District. It's been very interesting over the last 3 years. You can see in the 2020-21 year, that's the year of the pandemic, you had a slight drop in enrollment, about 66 students of decline. And we also saw that with just about all of our clients. So all of our clients saw a little bit of a drop during the pandemic, and then they saw a bounce back in the 21-22 year. So that 239 growth was really a combination of growth that should have happened over the previous year as well. So a little bit of a bounce from the COVID year, but then we started to see a softening. Part of that has to do with the expansion of choice that we're seeing across the country. It has expanded with many of our clients. When I say the expansion of choice, it can be transfer options. It can be some charter in some areas. I'm not sure that it's charter choice in your area, but there's also been the significant expansion of homeschool. Homeschool enrollments have more than tripled during the last 3 years. And while it hasn't been a big issue for your school district, it's the younger grade levels that we are seeing the homeschool option kind of taking root. And I've been attending homeschool conferences. I've been studying the homeschool patterns. And what I'm seeing is that for a lot of the homeschool families, they are choosing the homeschool option because of its flexibility. The flexibility with remote learning, the flexibility of cohort grouping together with families. And so it is, I believe, a trend that is going to continue to have a small impact on your younger grade levels. Now, one of the other things that we're noticing is many of those are returning to the public schools system in upper elementary, middle school grade levels to take advantage of the public school district's fine arts, extracurricular, athletics. So there's a little bit of homeschool pull in elementary. It's returning, and I suspect that may be partially the pattern that we're seeing in your first kindergarten, first, second. Now look at second, third. Those cohorts were very strong. They were 1.04 in second grade, almost 4% in third grade as well. Bottom line is this year's enrollment was relatively flat. We did see a little bit of a softening again at kindergarten and first. Let's go to the next slide. Now, I've created 2 levels of projections. One is looking at the housing market using similar yields that we've seen in the past from working with your school district. And if we continue to build about 100 to 150 homes per year, the district's enrollment could grow about 1 to 1.5% over the next 5 years, which would put your enrollment in 2028 at about 6,317. Now, I want you to spot the yellow cell, which is the largest grade per year. You can see how the current 7th grade class has been the largest class for the last 3 years. They were the largest cohort in 6th grade, the largest cohort in 5th grade. The green cell is the 2nd largest class, and it's currently down in the 2nd grade with 493. So as we get to the campus projections, you'll start to see those bubbles work their way through the different grade levels. When that 493 exits the elementary, you'll see it have an impact on your secondary campuses as well. I do expect under this forecast, your enrollment could get to about 6,317 students in 5 years. Go to the next slide, please. Now, this is looking at that projection by the campus level. And I'm using a functional capacity that was provided to me. I think it's the same capacity we've been looking at for the last couple of years. Your elementary schools at 700. We're in pretty good shape at the elementary schools, but you can see in 2026, when it goes negative that year, that's the graduating or the advancing of that large second grade class out of those elementary buildings, which is what creates that little 1 year dip in the enrollment at your elementary campuses. But under this scenario, West Elementary would be your largest elementary. It'll get to about almost 650 students by 2030, 2031. But you'll notice you've got pretty good balance between your elementary schools, not a huge break between them. You know, in 5 years, your smallest elementary would be North at 553. Your largest would be West at 637. Now you can see at the middle school level, you could approach capacity in 3 years under this scenario, and your junior high could approach capacity in 5 years. Again, part of that is the timing of that large second grade class as it moves up into the middle school grades. And again, when it moves up into the junior high class, you'll notice at your high school, it's going to be approaching its 2,000 capacity in 2030, 2031. Now, I've created a second scenario that's a little more conservative, and it's based on about 50 to 70 homes per year. This is assuming a housing slowdown because of the rising interest rates, concerns with inflation, and this would be a conservative forecast. It's, in my mind, it's really not a matter if you're going to hit 6,000 kids. It's just a matter of when. It's the timing. So under this low growth scenario, you would hit about 6,049 students in 5 years. So a much slower pace of growth. It also assumes that kindergarten numbers kind of stay down in that lower range. So this is based on 50 to 70 new houses a year, adding about 95 students over a 5-year period. I honestly feel like the reality is it's probably going to fall somewhere in between here. I don't know that you're going to see the previous model at 100 to 150 homes for 5 years because of the rising interest rates and the high inflation. But when you're doing facility planning, I hate to be too conservative for a long period of time because it can really put you at a challenge to bring on additional capacity. So I think it's trying to find that sweet spot of planning for either 6,000 or 6,300 kids, and it's going to likely fall somewhere in the middle. Next slide is showing this lower forecast at the campus level, and you can see we're in pretty good shape. You know, we really don't have a challenge at the elementary capacities. We're going to kind of float up near capacity at the middle school in about, 3 to 4 years. We'll get really close, but then as that bubble moves through and it hits the junior high is going to hit up against its capacity in about 5 to 6 years. High school should be below capacity, but very close to capacity in about 7 to 8 years. I'll do key takeaways and be ready to answer any questions. The housing market is slowing due to the rising interest rates and the overall inflation that we're seeing. Development activity is still taking place. So we are seeing new developments. We are seeing new activity for developers. The lower kindergarten enrollment is leading to this slowdown from what we saw and what we presented 2.5 years ago. You are going to be approaching capacities at middle school and junior high campuses. In 5 years, I think you should plan to be you're going to be between 6,000 and 6,300 students. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bob. If you could go back to slide 15 real quick, I do want to make, and Bob and I talked about this earlier. On the middle school, it hits yellow quick. That 1,000 functional capacity is based on today. January, that changes when we add 7 classrooms. So that will go up to somewhere around 1,200. So So that does help that early yellow there. But we're working off today's numbers, so this will obviously be updated at that point. And then, Bob, we were a little behind, and I don't believe we have the information in front of us that we asked you to come up with. Could you go over the age of our population in comparison that you said at the very beginning? We don't have that slide here.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I think what it points out is you are a destination district for younger families. So I did send that later this afternoon, but I'll resend it if you didn't get it in your inbox. And yes, there's the overall demographic report there. So there's a little more detail there, but those dark green bars at the bottom of that graph are the 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19. Those bars at the bottom are basically your school age population portion, and you are younger than the remaining portion of Christian County. So that was the highlight for me, was the fact that you're younger there. And you can see that 10 to 14, that's actually the largest cohort group in the county, in the district, and in the county. There's not another bar that's as high. So you are a relatively young community with school-age kids. So this little bit of slippage in kindergarten and first is a trend that I'm seeing everywhere. So I am seeing this trend, and I suspect it's the advancement of homeschool, and they are better organized than they were 5 years ago. They have resources. There's been a ton of money that's being pumped into technology, curriculum, resources to support the homeschool approach. And it is something that I think is here to stay in terms of its popularity with young families. And Curtis, if you'll act as the facilitator on questions.
Well, they all have mics, but they said they're good.
Okay.
But this is still in draft. So on, so I say it right. So on November 14th here at the OIC, 6:30 to 8, November 14th, 6:30 to 8. We'll publicize these, and those go out in the communication and everywhere. And the principals are going to work hard to get us as many community members from their buildings as they can. November 14th, 6:30 to 8 o'clock here at the OIC. Mr. Templeton will be in person, and he will go over the demographic study, and we'll go over our current long-range plan. That'll be the first meeting. The second meeting will be December 12th. We're going to move to West. And then on January 16th, it's going to be at the middle school, and we will, January 16th, and our goal there is that we'll be able to give a tour of the new entryway, the new offices, and the new classrooms. So those are the original. Now we'll add, if going through that long-range planning process, we decide that we want to or need to rewrite our long-range plan, then there'll be a fourth meeting. If we go through this process and we say, hey, we're good, we like what we have, there's no need to redo it, then that January one will be the last one. But in past experiences, there's some modifications, and once we take input, yeah. So we'll just keep you informed as we go along. So thank you, Mr. Templeton. We do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Let me know if you have any other questions at some point.
We'll move on to the MSA report. For that, yeah, this Whitney. Yeah. Ms. Karanja.
Just me. Hello, I have not had the privilege to get to a board meeting yet this year. Life has kind of gotten in the way a little bit, so I'm going to introduce myself really quickly to our new board members. My name is Whitley Karanja. I am the academic interventionist at South Elementary. I am in my third year at that gig there. And I have kids in the district. I have a 16-year-old junior who's on the Raiders ROTC team right now, which keeps me very busy. And I have a third grade daughter in my building, Kaylee, and she's a wrestler, so I'm about to get super busy with that too. But with those hats that I wear, I also am your MSTA representative for the union, teacher union within the district. We do lots of collaboration with Dr. Wilson and her team, and just making sure that teachers have a voice and that they're heard. We currently have 288 members. Our members are not just teachers. We have transportation, paraprofessionals, secretaries, district office, etc. So we are inclusive of all staff. We are not just looking at certified. We did not get to attend the open region hearing recently in October because it fell on our PLC day. And so we are waiting on updates from that to come from our representative, Marka Hyder. Unfortunately, I will also not be able to attend state hearing next month because it falls on the same day that my building is presenting to you all. And so I'm part of that presentation, so I don't get to go this year as well. But some things that we are excited about and moving forward with, just to kind of backtrack too, we welcome all of the new staff at Ozark on their first day here with a big breakfast. This year, we provided them all some t-shirt swags and some help from Dan Ortega for some leftover swag as well. Teachers just felt super excited and welcome to come in and like, oh my gosh, I got a free t-shirt today. So we were excited to be able to use some funding to get them something to welcome them to our district and make them feel welcome here. And I love seeing them in my building when they wear them. I'm like, oh yeah, I know where you got that. So that's always really nice, and kind of just they felt united in that. Like all of our new teachers at my building are like, we have this shirt and nobody else does. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Other things that we're excited about is we're getting ready to send out our district survey to our staff to just kind of ask them about our big 5 things that we ask every year. What do you want to see? What do you want to know? What types of questions do you have in regards to salary, stipends, professional development, your health benefits, and I've lost the last one. It'll come to me in a minute. We then, as there's a building representative in every building for MSTA. Then we get together, we compile all of those results, and by December 1st, it is my obligation to get those to Dr. Wilson to say that we want to collectively bargain on those ideas. We usually try to minimize it to about 2 to 3 top things for the district, but we allow all voices to be heard in that survey. And again, compile the biggest overarching, this is coming up in all of these comments about what people want to see and what we can help bring forward. Calendar, that's a big one. Should have thought of that one. That's our other one. We do all these things from January forward. I will meet with Dr. Wilson and we'll meet about one thing and then the next thing. And we work with, of course, for health benefits, we solely rely through Cox and what they have and those types of things. So it's just a great collective partnership that we have, a lot of collaboration, and we're thankful that we get to do that. Thankful for your support that we get to do that as well. And we're just happy that we get to be here, and people feel very well protected through their MSTA memberships as well. If they ever, experience an issue, we are able to handle it very quickly and professionally. And that's something that I really pride ourselves on, is that if any member comes to me, they are given the advice to seek professional help from our district leaders at our headquarters, and to not, move forward with any type of erratic emotion. And so we really pride ourselves on making sure that, we're handling ourselves professionally, because this is a professional environment. Other than that, hopefully I'll have more fun updates for you soon.
guys gonna stand behind me? You don't want to stand up here? Come on up here. All right, just trying to stand in the shadows here. All right, so I'll introduce everybody quick before we get started. You have Melissa Dodd. She's an instructional coach for us, secondary instructional coach, 7 through 12. Been in the district for nearly 30 years, so tons of experience here with teaching. You have Catherine Morrison. I've been in the district nearly 20 years, and prior to that, was an engineer with Boeing, McDonnell Douglas up in St. Louis. So we've got people with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, helping out in our classroom, supporting our teachers. What I want to talk about today is really kind of within the lens of our Portrait of a Graduate Trade of the Month, which is collaboration, and kind of break this presentation up into two parts. The first one is more or less collaboration among our students, and the second one is how we collaborate and support our teachers moving forward, and the things that our instructional coaches have been doing here very recently, some very exciting things. First thing with collaboration, we had our team building day a few weeks back, and some of this collaboration that took place was our junior high student council met with JROTC and with FFA Ag, and they created a whole bunch of different team building activities that could take place out back in our backyard. And this not only gave kids an opportunity to get to know more about the kids that they're sitting next to in class through trials and through successes, but also it gave our high school students, those juniors and seniors, opportunities to demonstrate leadership. And then it gave our junior high students something to kind of aspire and to look up to. So a couple more pictures with that. Just you see kids are engaged, having fun with each other and supporting each other. A couple other things here recently with the students on the left-hand side here, you got a bunch of pictures. Just a couple days ago was Missouri Day. And for Missouri Day, we had East Elementary third graders come over because they had a whole bunch of different things that they were doing to celebrate Missouri Day. And they had just finished a unit on Missouri geography. So we brought them over and they collaborated with our baking class. And within our baking class, Ms. Brockmeyer and her students baked over 120 sugar cookies and had them all cut out to the shape of Missouri. Those third graders, we had them come over and we got to have them decorate those cookies and not just randomly throw stuff on there. No, we wanted to give them an opportunity to show off what they learned about Missouri. These kids were putting down where the Capitol was, putting down where Ozark was, all the different cities, the Missouri River, Mississippi River. Man, I wish you guys could have seen the pride and just the elation these kids had as they were just showing off the junior high kids. Look what I know. And it was just so awesome to have our kiddos working alongside of them and to see that joy that these kids brought. It was excellent. Over here on the right-hand side, you're probably like, Dr. Link, why in the world is there a pipe on the gym floor? What does that have to do with anything for collaboration? Well, that pipe plays a very important role in that gym. It sits down in a floor pocket, and its job is to ensure that when we have volleyball nets and poles up, that those poles do not move. And that pocket, that pipe, it's got things all inside of it to make sure that it's designed and welded up so that it keeps everything at the same height. Well, long story short, we were missing one. And so what our kids were always having to do, or our coaches were having to reach down on the floor, grab one up, and move it. So on game days or anything like that, we were always having to move those pockets around. Well, that's like 5 to 8 pounds. And if you're grabbing it like this, there's a chance that thing's gonna slip and hit a toe or hit the floor. We did not want that to happen, especially with a brand new floor. That we want to eliminate that. So contacted Heath Wright. He brought his ag science students over. And boy, they treated me like a client. They came in ready they wanted to make sure they knew what my expectations were. They sat down, measured everything out, measured the pipe out, looked at an example, and they said, you know what, I think we got some of these materials back here at the shop. Within a week, they were able to get everything cut, welded, put together. Mandy, this is our kids here at the OIC. Our kids did this, brought it back over, made sure it met my expectations. It slid right into the floor, and it was just in time for us to take on Nixa for the 8th grade COC volleyball game, which we won, by the way, and we're conference champions. So what I hope you see is that collaboration is important. It happens every day, 7th and 7th grade, 7th and 8th grade, 8th and 8th grade. But what we're really looking for are opportunities to have collaboration happen up and down so that kids aren't just working with just their peer groups, but they're getting experience working with older and younger peer groups. So that's something that I'm really excited about, something that we're going to continue to keep doing. So from the collaboration standpoint from our students, that's really what I've got. I want to open up the floor for our instructional coaches to tell you about the great stuff that they're doing with our teachers, which is really impacting the instruction and our students' learning.
Thank you, Dr. Link. Yep. And good evening. Ooh, go the other way. Okay, we're going to begin with this quote. It's often referred to in education, but I'm just going to use it as an example with riding a bike to get us started. So it's not enough for me to just tell somebody how to ride a bike. At some point in time, I've got to get you involved in that process, and I've got to get you on that bike, and I need you to give it a go so you can try it out for yourself.
Absolutely right. So today I want to share with you our instructional coaching cycle that we have right here. And we begin with data collection. And so that could look like a coaching conversation between a teacher and a coach where we're sharing information. It could look like a classroom observation where we're gathering data. We then go on and meet with the teacher, and they, the teachers, set their own personal growth goal that's important to them, their interest, the needs of their kids, something that will help them improve instruction and thereby improve student learning. Then Melissa and I design an implementation plan for them that consists of research-based strategies and resources. And at that point, they're ready to go into the classroom with us and work on it. So they spend some time altering and modifying these strategies, self-reflecting on what's happening, altering it if they need you to meet their specific needs. And all the while, Melissa and I are providing feedback and other support, either it's with modeling or getting other instructional strategy and resources that they need. So once that's done, I want to share with you the personal growth goals that we have going on currently at the secondary level. Across the top, we have the design areas in green. And then down on the left in black are the goals, and the check marks represent what teachers are currently working on in their classroom, what they've chosen to work on. All that being said, we want to take a quick minute to share with you why we think it matters.
So first of all, it provides an individualized professional development. So this is not a one-size-fits-all sit and get PD for teachers. It's very custom fit, and we try to meet the teachers where they are and work with them on what their needs of their students are. And so that leads into
Collective teacher efficacy. And that is known to be, research tells us, is a leading indicator of teacher retention. If teachers think they're valued and supported, if they believe that they're making a difference in students' achievement, then they're more apt to stay with us.
So not only does collective teacher efficacy increase teacher retention, it also improves student achievement. In fact, it's the #1 predictor of student achievement. So if we can get our teachers to be confident in their beliefs, their abilities, and what they do, it only positively impacts it.
And that's why we believe this coaching cycle that we have embarked on also supports our professional learning communities in that it provides collaboration and continuous improvement.
So last but not least, we would like to leave you with some feedback from our secondary teachers and some of their thoughts about their coaching experiences thus far.
So I'm Catherine Morrison. This is Melissa Dodd. We're the secondary instructional coaches, and we're just happy to be here and share some great things that are happening in the Ozark classroom.
Anyway, on that day, we had 10 appointments to meet with our Missouri representatives, congressmen, and senators. I got to be part of a group, all of us went and visited with Congressman Sam Graves and Jason Smith. Then we broke into groups because there was such a large group. I got to go to Eric Burleson's office, Emmanuel Cleaver, Mark Alford, and Senator Josh Hawley. One thing that was sad was we didn't get to actually meet with them personally. I think the other group met with 2 of them, but that was the busy week. That was the week leading into possibly the shutdown with the budget not being passed. So it was understandable, but they had what they call their staffers that met with us. They were very cordial. We discussed back and forth our concerns and their concerns. They took a lot of notes that they would share back with the congressman or senator. So it was good. So I was so glad to get to go. Back the first week of October, we had our quarterly board meeting, MSBA in Columbia. Our biggest thing is school safety is our priority. We are considered a leader nationwide in school safety training through our Center for School Safety. I wanted to give you a little update. We just purchased 2 vans that we will equip with the recently acquired simulators for safety training. They rolled that out with the training recon system, which will bring life to 14,000 tense situations from an angry students fighting in the cafeteria all the way up to possibly an active shooter. This training is free to all school districts. If they register or sign up to have that, the vans will travel to their school and do their training in their school. It lets the employees of that school practice crisis management. This simulator, it will include sounds of gunshot, alarm going off, kids crying, teachers screaming, smoke machines. And the smoke machine would be like if you were having a fire, but it kind of puts them in the real world in their training so that they, as Mark Deeds likes to say, Captain Mark Deeds, the more you feed that brain that it could happen, then you hopefully retain that and help you to react when it does happen, if it does. MSBA is also partnered with MSU, our local college, the Community Alliance for School Success. So that's really key. Of course, coming up in 2 weeks is the annual conference. And I'm not sure who all has registered, but if you have registered, whether you're a board member or administrator, please bring a child's book with you from pre-K to 3rd grade readers. If you will donate that book and give your school district, we can have up to 10 entries per district. This will then there will be a drawing to come back to 6 different school districts, 500 free books from Scholastic. You can drop your book off as you enter the Kansas City Convention Center in the lobby from the start date of Thursday through Saturday, so those 3 days. So please try to get out and get a book for these children and donate it. Also, I want to remind you that our student showcase will be held on Friday, November the 3rd, and we are having our Ozark High School Educators Rising, which I'm so proud and so looking forward to seeing them. Ozark Schools will be hosting a session. Dr. Fitzpatrick has helped set this up, and we've been discussing it. SWATting, lessons learned, what happened to us last year, with Captain Mark Deeds, Dr. Jeremy Brownfield, the principal at the high school, Dr. Fitzpatrick, and myself. That work session will be on October the 6th at 8:30 a.m. Got to start off early. Along with that, I was asked to serve on a panel for school safety, leading with the resources you have. It will be alongside, and I can't remember exactly where all these are from, but there's school superintendent, he is from Bolivar, 2 different school police chiefs from Springfield and 1 from Kirkwood, a CFO, I can't remember the school district she was from, but that will be on Saturday, November the 4th at 9:40 a.m. Will be a panel of discussion. And remember, if you're coming up Thursday, everyone is invited to a president's reception that evening. And I believe the Ozark Schools will be having a dinner that evening. And I think Dr. Wilson will send that out when that's going to happen. So, and then remember, Stifle will take us out Friday night, and then Saturday night is the banquet. So look forward to it.
Assistant Superintendent's report. one speaking on that. You all have it in your packet, all of those reports, so thank you all.
Do you
for-
mind if I give a quick update
Oh,
on?
gosh, yes.
No, that's
sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Dr. Wilson?
So I went this morning along with Dr. Carson, Dr. Chesick to the County Commissioners Work Session on Senate Bill 190. I can say, and everybody agreed, that they have been dealt a very bad hand, that they have to make decisions that will impact many people and it will not make everyone happy. And so I thought that it was 2 hours, and they listened to a great representation from all groups, for those that could potentially receive the tax credit, to entities that the change in funding could affect. They are not making a decision this month. I think he said that they were going to some type of state meeting to learn more about it, and he had wanted to make a decision in November, but will probably be in December. But I will say that it was a very good meeting, and it was good to hear everyone's opinion and how this is going to affect them. And once again, the county commissioners, I think they will, whatever the decision is, will do it in the best, they will do what's best, what they feel for the people of the county. And I did state to them that no matter what decision was made, we would abide and we would educate our students no matter what the funding is. And we will continue to do that no matter what happens. And then I wanted to bring up, and I had sent it to you in one of the emails or documents that I sent you, that I'm sure you've heard on the news about a potential conference change for the COC. Branson and Carl Junction did appeal to move to a different conference, and they have started a conference with some other schools, and it was approved that they moved. Now, we thought that we would have some answers by the end of this week, but you then saw that Hillcrest and Parkview, there were some changes with Springfield that could potentially affect this, that came out late yesterday evening, so it is a very fluid issue. And so we hope to have some kind of resolution by the beginning of next week for this conference. The main thing that will change, or basically the only thing, would be our football. Everything else would be in the COC right now, but it would be when Branson and Carl Junction left, that left 2 holes in our football schedule, not only ours, but everybody else in the conference. And so we're trying to determine, are we going to pick up 2 games? If other conferences are moving and changing, then there's going to be some games there too. So right now, it's really the only group that it affects is football. So I just wanted to give you a small update on that.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Assistant Superintendent's reports, any questions or comments or feedback on those? Those are attached: Learning Division, Budget, Bank Reconciliation, Communications, Operations. And moving on to future dates. Dr. Wilson, any comments on those? We have, let's see here. We have the State of the Community Town Hall at First Baptist Church Ozark at 5:30, and that's the City of Ozark, the Ozark Chamber, County probably, and school. So thank you all for sending representatives there. And I believe everyone can send in questions to info@ozarkchamber.com. I believe it's on the website. And then Tuesday, October 31st, Tiger Paw treat handout. And Thursday, November 2nd through the 4th is the MSBA conference in Kansas City. And our next town hall meeting is scheduled for December the 7th.
We will add the long-range planning to that also.
Yes, we have the long-range planning on November 14th, December the 12th, and January 16th, and maybe another one. So now we need to move on to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd like to pull some items first, please. N, O, P, U, and V. N, O, P, U, and V. V as in Victor.
Okay, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda with the items N, O, P, U, and what was the last?
V.
V be pulled aside.
We have a motion by Patty. Do we have a second? Okay, second by Guy. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended? Unanimous, thank you.
N and O we could probably talk about together. Am I out of order? Are you ready for that, Madam President? What? What?
Okay.
N and
Yeah,
O,
do you
the
have a-
easements. I just wanted somebody to explain about them. I think that's a public business. We ought to hear about it, talk about it.
Okay.
N and O are the easements, the sewer easement and the storm siren easement with the city.
Oh, it's C on.
We have a 911 tower over at East Elementary. The city has partnered with us to put a storm siren on our property at West Elementary. There's nothing over in the East Elementary zone. They would like to put a storm siren inside of there. Just requires us to give them permission to put something on our property. So that's that one. The other one is, and this one's taken a little bit of time. The neighbor to our east of Tiger Paw wanted to put, the city's got a great sewer line going through there. I mean, it is a main line. And the neighbor wanted to connect to that. And so we worked with the city to find out, can they go up the road, and the elevations don't work out. So the route that they need goes right along our property line. So that easement was presented by our attorney to him. And everybody's in agreement. They completed the survey to show where exactly they were going to put it, which was part of our attorney's contention. And they will restore the property to a usable state. And that's just, it's a sewer easement's a pretty common thing. And we just want to make sure it's not going across our property. So we have the survey there shows exactly where it's going to lay.
All right.
Lie.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so
I'll make a motion to approve N and O.
Second.
motion by Patty, second by Aaron. All in favor to approve N and O? Unanimous, thank you.
Item P is the data sharing agreement.
Okay, item P.
I was really surprised that was on the consent agenda because I think something like that needs a lot of discussion. After all of the concern in our state over the past decade or more about data being shared and wrongly shared, like the CCW licenses, where the legislature prohibited it and the Department of Revenue, no, they shared it. I mean, so that's a big deal in this state. I don't know what the rule is. It says a DESI requirement, but I'd like to see where that is or find out what's the consequence if we don't follow their guideline for what they want done. I mean, I think that deserves some discussion or something. So maybe I'd like to move that we table that and discuss it next time.
We can, if we table it, which, I mean, you're the board, so you can definitely change that. This is due, and the only reason I'm giving it to you now is because it was just given to us this past week. So we did not have it any sooner And I did actually complain about that to the deputy commissioner last week on Friday on a phone call. And so the data agreement, when the legislature passed the reading bill this past SB 681 this past session, they require us to give one of 4 approved assessments to our students. In the requirements, the vendors, which there's 4 of them, have to send the data straight to DESE, just like we do with the MAP test or the EOC test. So we use DRC as one of them, Questar. So the state has specific vendors they have that are official vendors for them, and we had to choose one of 4. And so that is what this agreement is saying, that the vendor already has our information. We've already assessed all of our kids, and so now we have to send that information to DESE, and it doesn't come back to us and we upload it to DESE. It goes straight over from the vendor to DESE. It's a direct upload from vendor, and it's all the districts in the state. We all 500 and something have to choose one of 4 vendors to do that with.
It seems like DESE thinks that they get to tell local districts what they do, but that's not the way it's supposed to work. The board gets to decide. So if DESE wants us to approve something, they need to give it to us with enough time to consider it and reply with what we believe is best for our district. And I certainly don't think that any data should go from the vendor to DESE. It should come back to us like you talked about doing with the was it IB or whichever one it was, where you pulled the student data yourself and assigned them each a number and
The evaluate data.
the evaluate data,
yes.
sorry, and sent only the number. That would be a great method to use if we had to share data with DESE, but state agencies have proven that they're not capable of protecting data.
So the data that is shared, is it personal information about a student? Is it just data of the test scores or whatever?
It is directory information. So directory information would be a student name, date of birth, and it would be their any kind of demographic data, so male, female, that data. So it's everything required by the feds, that line of data that the feds require. It's just like our MAP test. It's just not it's not Questar. It would be NWEA, who is the vendor.
So this information has previously always been shared for the MAP testing with Questar. Is this a similar agreement?
For 20 years.
For 20
It's
years.
been, so with MAP, I mean, we're in the MAP's a little older than 20 years. So MAP started in 94, I think. And so we've been doing this same data agreement with Missouri vendors for 24 years, and it's the exact same agreement.
Was
And the
Questar
vendors-
not on the list this time?
Questar doesn't do these reading assessments. They had
So
to
it's
be,
different.
yeah,
Yeah,
so they had to be approved a certain way, and that's why Questar is not the vendor. So whoever DESE chooses for
That's who, okay.
for the vendor is the one districts have to use.
And in the past, do the vendors share their data directly with DESE, or do they send it
Yes,
back to
no,
the school?
we
That's what
don't
it says.
ever see it until it comes back to us later.
I think it's time to
Right.
stop that.
That's one of the reasons you wait so long to receive it back and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't like it any more than you do. I just don't know. I've complained personally,
Mhm.
and I think that's all I can do. I mean, it's a requirement and it by the state legislature that they will do this.
It's a requirement that they get the numbers, right? Not all of the student data. So we can just decide we're not going to allow the vendor to share it with DESI. We're going to allow the vendor to share it with us, and we'll share it with DESI, just like we do with Evaluate. I mean, we're supposed to be in control of our students in our district, and so I think until school boards start doing that, DESI is going to continue to say, oh, you have to do this. No, that's your idea for us to do, but we're going to decide what our district has to do. I
Well,
mean, maybe I'm
it's-
being too strong about that, but I think
No,
that's
no,
important.
I hear what you're saying, and we are already, the deadline was October 17th, and I said we would not sign an agreement until we had board approval. So, I mean, what's a month later? If we're late, we're late. So the option is I can send it through to our attorneys and go through that route, talk to DESI again. I can guarantee you there's not a go around. DESI will require us to get it from the vendor to DESI because that is the way it's written up.
Yeah, this is required by the state legislature, so
I would
this
like-
is more of a legislative issue that we abide by, correct?
Unfortunately, it is, and I did not pull up the legislation, but I can try to pull it up. If we want to go to one of the other agenda items, I can work on it for a moment while we're doing that.
We don't have to discuss it tonight necessarily because it's getting late, but I would like to see the language of that legislation because it probably is a little bit different than what DESI is saying has to be done. They probably interpreted it to fit what they think would work best for them. But I doubt that the legislature mandated that a school district had to send it from the vendor to the DESI. They probably just said DESI needs the information. I don't know.
Hang on one second. Did you see the link I included in the packet? Did you read that?
With the agreement?
Yes, there's
That
a
one?
link in the packet
Oh, maybe I didn't see that, no.
that showed the guidance that we were given.
Oh.
I
Good.
included that in the packet where we have opportunity to read it.
Good. So since it's 8:40 and we have many other things on the agenda to discuss and approve, I moved it, but we didn't have a chance for a second before we started discussing it. So I moved that we table this item until next month.
Second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have some new decorum board rules posted at the entrance, and it's for no outbursts or audience commentation. Comments? So if there's another outburst, we would have to ask you to leave, please.
I'm looking, yep. Give me a moment. I think the next one's mine too, though, but I'll look for it.
Okay, and we were in the middle of a vote.
Oh, sorry, the next one is you. Oh, and we already talked about that, so I don't have any more questions about it because we talked about it earlier. So I move that we approve you.
Second that.
So there's a motion to approve you and a second by, motion by Christina, second by Amber, all in favor? Unanimous? Okay, thank you. On back to.
And V is the last one that I asked to have pulled, just the same reason with the easements. It's a public business. I think it needs a little bit of explanation or discussion. Acquiring surplus property. Yeah, but I just would like to hear about what it is.
Sure. So surplus, we don't just sell items that we've purchased with public funds. We don't just sell those to the public. we have a surplus and it follows board policy. So you declare an item surplus and we go through this process. How many times do you do it a year?
For, like we just, June or July, you approved buses to be surplus property, and it's the same thing.
Same
It's something that
process.
we purchase with district money, federal, state, or local money. So for our board policy says that we have to post it as surplus property, and we can put it out for bid. We did this so this construction trades is
Right.
building these playhouses, and they have dollars in it, and if we kept them from year to year, we'd have more playhouses than we could do anything with. And someone will have a great Christmas present, but we want to go through the board process and make sure that we recover. That's why the minimums on there is what's the value of it. So there's that, I think it's $1,000 set on there, and that's what's
So we're going to call it surplus property and then sell it? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Great idea.
It's the same way we sold houses when construction
Right.
trades built big houses.
Right.
You had to surplus them. And we
Mhm.
gave them we said, so this house is worth 160,000.
Mhm.
And then you go out to sell and maybe 10 people want it and there's only 8. So we actually sell them for a little more than what
Mhm.
we think they're worth.
Yeah.
But it's that same process.
Good. Thank you for explaining that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the addition of the surplus property.
Motion by Patty, second by Christina. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We take care of N.
I think that was all.
Okay, what do we need to take care of another consent agenda item or?
That was, I
Going
think
to
that was
P.
the last one.
Okay.
Oh, the one he's looking up, yeah. Forgot.
Okay, we need to approve P. Do we have a motion? Is the recommendation to approve P?
I'll make a motion to approve item P, approve the data sharing agreement between DESE and NWEA according to statute.
Motion by Patty. Second. So I heard another, do you want to take a recess? Or I heard another.
What?
Yep. We'll take a recess and moment.
I'm trying to find it.
All right, and so it is the policy of the board not to have any outbursts, as we stated in the sheet coming in, and there have been 3 outbursts that I've heard, so the board has asked a patron to leave.
You guys, the board considers any kind of talking or distraction during the meeting an outburst. That's not really an outburst. Nobody would call it that, but it was distraction or talking, making noise. So that's on that policy that was just agreed today and published. I think, I don't know if it was handed out or whatever it was, but the audience has to be quiet because it distracts the board members and it distracts the people around them. And so that's the rule.
The board is in agreement that the outbursts were made.
Siggy, did you say something? That's what they're saying. If you made any comment at all, they don't want that to happen. They don't want people to make comments. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Yeah, I know. But it's distracting, and I don't know. Can't do that.
Yes, we can hear. We were in the board agreement that we have heard more than 3 outbursts.
You know, if you whispered, it wouldn't be heard, but
We could hear
when you talk
the
out
negative
loud-
comments. We heard shame on you and so on.
Sorry. There's another outburst. It's true, but it's out of order.
Yep. Okay, so are we going on to N?
Can I move
Move
the
on
same
to
thing
letter
again that we
N.
table in?
Oh, okay, yep, sure, thank you. We can move on to new business and bus stop criteria. Which one? We need to, we'll do number 19. Yep, approval of the Board of Education open session minutes. And the recommendation is a motion.
Second it.
Motion by Mark, second by Guy.
Wait a second. I'm sorry. Didn't we do that already?
The open session.
Oh, okay.
And all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Moving on to new business, bus stop criteria. Dr. Chesick.
I'm going to take this opportunity to stand up. We sat through the commissioners meeting and we have been working hard today. So I'm going to start with, last month we had a discussion and there were some things that were asked to bring back. So I want to start with policy EEAB, which is our school bus scheduling and routing. We actually have the whole policy pulled up. If you want to go to the last tab, please. That first line, or the first section, says bus routes, schedules, and stops shall be developed under the direction of the superintendent following procedures set by the State Board of Education. And we'll get to those in just a minute. And it's in programming, we kind of have a loop going because it refers us back to the state board. And then from the state board, or then in their document, it says the board, local school board, can set policies. So we point back to the criteria that they set. And we'll look at those criteria in just a minute. But I'd also like to jump down to section 3, or the third paragraph. Actually, I'm sorry, let me go back to the top one, finish reading the first one. The purpose of bus scheduling and routing will be to achieve maximum service with a minimum fleet of buses and render reasonable and equal services to all students. So, eligible students. So last month I kept saying a change for one is a change for all. That's board policy. We have to apply this policy our routing equally across all students. We can't say what we do for one and do it for differently, or do it differently for another student, so that, or therefore we'd be in violation of board policy. And then the third paragraph says, bus routes will follow the most direct roads practical for school bus travel to serve those students entitled to transportation service. And we do bus all students, or provide transportation for all students who desire it. Where an alternate route may be selected without sacrifice to efficiency or economy, preference will be given to the route serving the largest number of students more directly. And that's where we get to the criteria that we set are coming from, if we go back to the presentation, please. When it says in the first paragraph there, the State Board of Education, the guidance comes from rules of Department of Elementary, on the next slide, please. The rules of Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Division 30, Division Financial Administrative Services, Chapter 261, Pupil Transportation. In a very small writing on the bottom there, you'll see Code of State Regulations. This is codified. This is law, okay? These are regulations. And as we go through it, there's several things in here, but the one that we really want to focus on, and I will go back, Mr. Romano was up here, and he did talk about, there are some other items that we didn't talk about that aren't listed, and I did not print the entire document into the presentation, but it does talk about criteria for determining routes. We look at the location of a pupil's residence, grade and age of the pupil to be transported, type and conditions of roads, standards of service desired, and that's where we talk about quarter mile and some other things. Funds available for transportation service, safety considerations for establishing school bus routes, the general safety of all routes in relations to hazards such as hills, intersections, railroad crossings, bridges, sharp curves, obstructions, and visibility. We investigate, when a parent brings those to us, we investigate them, we measure them against what we're getting ready to look at in just a minute. If we don't already know them. There are several in our program, in our programming software, there are several hazards that are identified, and they are marked as no stops. Excuse me. The general safety of loading and unloading stops in relation to the visibility of approaching motorists. We'll address that one in just a minute. And then D, walking route safely to loading stop, from unloading stop, and loading zones. So that information is what he was referring to early in his email about the not reading or not addressing those. That is practice, that's procedure. That's, we go and look at, we take into criteria the age of the students, the physical ability of the students. It's a special needs student. We treat them equally under the law, and Laura will tell me and tell you that equally under the law for a special needs student is different than equally under the law for a physically able student. So we apply it equally across based upon those criteria. But if we go to the next slide, this is what our policy refers back to when it says we're going to develop routing to this level. To be fair, the statute says administrative policy shall be adopted by the Public School Board of Education, which you have in EEAB, which describes the criteria and safety considerations and routing standards school officials must use when establishing or modifying school bus routes. This is where I say there's a programming loop. It says you must, and the board approved that said, yes, we approve, go back to the DESE document, and we're approving those as printed. And those as printed are on your screen. I don't believe we need to go through all of those. But we do need to look at D. Routes should be planned to avoid dead-end streets or cul-de-sacs whenever possible. It's not if, it's whenever possible. So whenever possible is defined by some of those things we just said. We want to make sure it's a safe intersection with visibility. The guidelines on the next slide point out, again, from the same document, Pull as far to the right as practical on a traveled portion of the roadway and at a location so the school bus is visible for at least 300 feet in both directions, or 500 feet if the speed limit is greater than 60 miles per hour. So if it was 61 miles per hour, we would have to have 500 feet. When a parent asks and has concerns about this, we go out. The first thing we do is we measure it with Google Earth. We also look at it in comparison with our routing software. And then in many cases, as we have in the most recent, we walk out with a wheel and we measure it from line of sight. In some cases, we also use a rangefinder. And so we determine if we are in those guidelines that are set by the state as far as safety for intersections based upon speed. So we apply those equally. And if we go to the next slide, these are the questions that were specifically asked last week to come back, or last month to come back with. So how many bus stops are there on lettered or numbered highways? And I want to be clear, we bus about 50% of our kids. I can't look in the software and say, these are the kids that we bus, because every kid has a route. So when we say 325 students have stops on a lettered or numbered highway, based on statistics and statistics only, that means half of those students are getting on or off a bus there. 65 students with driveway, there are 65 students with a driveway on a lettered or numbered highway. Those we do stop at their driveway. We don't want anybody walking down 14 and then J, so those we do pick up at their driveway. Some of those driveways are longer than a quarter mile too. And then another question was, how many kids walk over a quarter mile? 458 students, again, in the routing software. Take a statistical analysis of that, say it's 225, 229 students with a quarter mile walk or greater to their bus stop. So that's a pretty good number. Live within sight of their bus stop. This one is that's a hard thing. I rode a bus yesterday. What bus was it? 46, which was through a subdivision. Where they stopped, there was 4 stops in this subdivision. The bus was full, and there's only 4 stops, and 70 some kids or whatever. I mean, it was full capacity. Kids get off, and they walk to a corner and turn and then walk to their home, or they might turn twice to walk to their home. So as far as how many kids have line of sight to their home, without riding every bus and walking every kid home, that's a near impossibility to figure out. A guess, without tracking every student, not having time to track every student, that's probably approaching 50% of bus riders don't have line of sight to their home. And I mean, a lot of our kids are in town, and a lot of those kids, I mean, as soon as, like when we drop off on the corner at Lark on 10th Ave. So 10th Ave is on top of a hill. So as soon as those kids step off the bus and start walking down Lark or whatever these other ones are, they immediately, or as they're walking up, they lose sight of their homes. So that number is a little harder to find. So we were asked to get this, and we can modify a board policy, and that's up to the board. But the way that the board policy is currently written, I must enforce it equal for all students. That's the impact if we change on any one of those criteria. Now, the argument could be made that we only do cul-de-sacs that are a quarter mile. The criteria is a quarter mile. We can't pick and choose and say if you live on a cul-de-sac, you get an exemption, you don't have to walk more than a quarter mile. When on that same road, there's dead ends. There's roads that are just long driveways that are more than a quarter mile. we would have to apply it to those as well, to be equal for all students. So I'll open it up for any questions that you have.
I have a couple of things to say.
You bet.
You know, statistically speaking, when there's only one factor considered, then it's easy to say, oh, that would be this larger number. But the more factors are considered, you multiply those probabilities together to see who fits in there, and it becomes pretty minuscule after just 4 or 5 different factors, such as live on a easily navigable cul-de-sac, and also have a walk more than a quarter of a mile, and also, and include all of those things to be considered. If that was still too many students that might be allowable in this change of policy, even when you considered all of those factors together, if you were going to change something and say, well, you know, I'm going to change the procedure for how I do the bus route, but I don't want to because there's going to be too many impacted, too many changes, it's going to cost too much, whatever, then even if all of those ands were considered and you got a smaller and smaller fraction of the kids, with each fraction you multiply it and it gets smaller, then you could say, and whose parents have approached me about changing it. Those would be, I don't know, a dozen, a 6, 5, I don't know. You said over the last 2 years, there were 2 families who approached you, and this year there was 1.
I said there was 2 that came to the board.
Yeah, 2 that like continued pursuing it, and this year there's 1 more. So over the past 3 years, there've been 3. So that was my first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing I wanted to say was—
Can I answer that real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't understand. The way I look at that is you're not diminishing the criteria. If I say I'm going to diminish it to a quarter mile and a cul-de-sac.
So how many people live more than a quarter of a mile away and also live on a cul-de-sac and also are out of line of sight? Not because their driveway is so long, but that's private property on their driveway, but walking on a road that anybody can travel. So, and also they have to do this. So they have to meet all of those requirements to fit into having the procedure changed for them.
When you say and, so if I'm saying a quarter mile, that's one criteria.
More than a quarter of a mile.
Okay, so that's 458 students.
That have to walk, half of that have to walk more than a quarter of a mile. Okay. And also those students that have to walk more than a quarter of a mile live on a cul-de-sac.
So now I'm going to throw cul-de-sac in, so we're actually adding those 2.
Both more than a quarter of a mile and a cul-de-sac.
So you're saying—
that narrows it.
So your contention is because they live on a cul-de-sac, they should be treated different than the other 225 students?
No, my contention is that if we're going to talk about changing the procedure and how many people it's going to affect, you have to consider all of the factors involved, whether the people would meet the criteria for all of those things to be involved. And that leads into my second comment that I wanted to make about the state regulations, because I have been looking at these even before last board meeting because I saw it on the agenda, and I even told Lori, I don't know what this is. So I've already been looking into them. The first part of the procedure, which you read, that wasn't included on this slide, the first part, it says the transportation service which meets and may exceed state's board's minimum requirements. So the first things are requirements: location of people's residence, grade and age of the people to be transported, type and condition of roads, standard of service desired, funds available. And the second thing was another requirement: safety considerations, the general safety of all routes in relation to hazards such as hills, intersections, etc. B, the general safety of loading and unloading stops. All of these are still requirements. C, walking distance to the bus stop. You accidentally skipped that one when you were reading it a second ago, but letter C says walking distance to the bus stop in relation to the age of the pupil. And D, another requirement, walking route safety to loading stop, from unloading stop, and loading zones. Those are all requirements. Then the things that are listed—
Dina, do you have a motion to change the—
No, I'm making a statement for a second. The things that are listed on the PowerPoint that you read, that's number 3. Number 2 was requirements. Number 3, these are examples. It says these are the modifying school bus routes. Examples might include, but are not limited to, and then the things that are on your slide. So those are just examples. Those are not requirements. Those are examples of what might be included in the policy.
Yeah, but currently the way our policy is written, it says procedures are set. that's what I'm saying, it's the loop. It points back to these and say, this is what we adopted.
It would point back at least to number 1 and 2, which are the requirements.
Okay, any other comments? Or do we have a motion on? No, there's no motion, just discussion. All right.
I
Go
have
ahead.
something I'd like to talk about.
Yes, thank you.
So I'd like to go back to, well, first of all, I have 2 comments. The public agenda is not the same as ours. And so why? They know, I mean, my husband screenshot me too. He doesn't see the same letters that we do. So he doesn't see P, or he doesn't see the ones we pulled out. Are you guys seeing this? I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, but I do think it's wrong for the public. Yeah, I know. I do think we need to acknowledge it though, because all these letters we're talking about, the public is not seeing.
To check the letters.
Yeah. So the other thing is I did read, and I knew that I had read this, so I went back through and read this again. The DESE P, letter P, the DESE share agreement with the NWEA.
Wait, so are we done
it
talking
is.
about the bus route there? Are you talking about something else?
I wanted to move on to something else. I thought we were
Oh.
done. There was no motion. I thought I could.
Okay.
Yes, that's.
So going back to P, it's RSMO 167.674. Each school district and charter school shall assess all students enrolled in kindergarten through 3rd grade at the beginning of each and end of each school year for their reading level or reading readiness on state-approved reading assessments. Then the state-approved vendors, which were provided by, oh my God. Craig.
Carson?
You're Carson.
Yeah,
Carson.
whoever I am, the
Sorry.
blonde.
It's late. We've been here a long time.
It's been a long day, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's
I know
all
your
good.
name. He listed them here. And so I don't think we have a choice to not do it. It's a state legislator is making us do it. I will move at this point to make a motion that we approve that because it is something that we have to do. And I'm going to take their selection that they have selected at this point to share this information by the state legislator. Also,
where
it's
did
sharing.
you find that, Amber? I didn't hear at the beginning where you found it.
Huh?
Where did
Yeah.
you find that at the beginning?
It's
you
in the
said?
attachment that he gave to us.
And we have a
then you
motion.
can
That
follow
link,
RSMO
the DESE
over.
link?
Yeah, so also,
I'd like to
One-
I would like to second the motion that's on the
okay, sorry,
floor,
I
and then
forgot.
you can have
Yes, go ahead.
discussion.
Yep, sorry, thank you.
Amber had more to say. Sorry, I interrupted you. I wanted to just find out what you were looking at.
What the attachment is in our agenda, and that's why when he was saying, I know it is, that's why I went back to find it because he linked it.
The agreement, right?
No,
No,
this,
the
the
section. The
RSMO,
link.
section 167.674. If you go to it and read it, it says what I just read, each school. And then then he gave us the list of the approved state vendors, and I moved to make the motion that we accept what he had presented, and Patty seconded.
Yes, and we have a motion by Amber and a second by Patty. Any other discussion?
I'll redo one
Oh.
more RSMO if you don't mind.
Can you just tell me where that is? Because I clicked on the link and it just goes to a DESE page. It doesn't take me any state statutes. Maybe mine is different than yours, the way that's different.
If you go into it, it's on it. It's on it. You
I-
click it.
I clicked on it. That's not what mine looks like at all.
Scroll down.
When I scrolled down, this is not RSMO. This is not a statute. This is
It's
DESE's.
RSMO is linked. I'm not
Okay.
stupid.
Thank you. That's what I was asking, is
It's-
where that link?
It's saying, then it takes me to, you click on it, I click on it, and it takes me to RSMO.
Good. Where is the link?
It's in
Under
that.
state-approved reading assessment list. So
Oh,
if you click
down
on the
at the bottom, those
state-approved,
green
yes,
things.
thank you. If you click on the state-approved assessment list, and
Thank
then
you.
you will see a memo published April 21st, 23. And if in that first paragraph is a link to section 167.645.
And you can go back to the letter and show what the approved vendor
Thank
list
you.
is.
So, one last comment. On RSMO 167950, I serve on this committee and I stay frustrated all the time because I argue against all the rules. So Christine, I completely agree with what you're saying about DESI just creates rules at times. But they bring me back to 167950, which is part of the reading legislation. And it says, the State Board of Ed shall promulgate rules and regulations for each public school to screen students for dyslexia. Part of this test is this dyslexia screening and related disorders, and provide necessary classroom support. Any portion of a rule, as the term is defined in blah, 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 is created. So it goes on, but it gives DESI the sole permission to promulgate the rules that we have to follow. I don't like it. And I argued last week, I was on the phone with a video conference for 2 hours with the assistant commissioner, arguing with her over it. So I just want you to know I'm arguing against it, but I don't think there's anything I can do about it.
And like Dr. Martin Luther King explained, sometimes we have to just disobey and say, well, what are the consequences? We're not going to do that.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you. And shall we call for a vote now? All in favor of approving in? Any opposed? Thank you. And
Could
now
you
we
state the results of the voting for those people who aren't watching, please?
motion passed.
5-2. Thank you.
And I do think we need to address to the public that we know that that list is not correct, and publish the right one. So, and we'll figure out what's wrong.
Yes, working on the, yeah, thank you.
Okay. I know that we're going to hear about it.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Amber. And now we just need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mark,
I'll second it.
second by Guy. All in favor? Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.